Hey dinner table, how you doing today? Honestly, I'm a little nervous to record this video. I've never made anything like it. And to speak from the heart for a moment, this is probably my favorite content on YouTube. Video essay style content, opinion pieces, breakdowns, genuinely is my favorite thing to watch. And I'm extremely passionate about the Zelda franchise. Breath of the Wild has to be my favorite game, and arguably the greatest video game ever made. Fight me on it. And this most recent Tears of the Kingdom trailer, A, shows so much to me if you squint, and B, gives me a lot of ideas and guesses for what may be coming in Tears of the Kingdom when it finally drops. So we're gonna break down, scene by scene, everything that we do see in this trailer, and I'll be getting into some speculation on what we could be getting in the full release. If you like videos like this, if you like this video, share it with a friend, comment down below what you think. If I missed anything that you notice, feel free to let me know in the comments as well. And if you want to see this or anything else that I do, subscribe to the channel, hit the noti bell. I'll try not to disappoint. With all that being said, let's get started. One of the first things I take notice of in this trailer shows up at 11 seconds. The new winged wyvern style enemies. Later on in the trailer, you see these enemies bringing in bokoblins and other lesser enemy types. Makes sense considering we're doing so much sky traversal. And around 17, I have large questions about this. The towers that light up. Obviously, we've already located all the Sheikah towers from Breath of the Wild, and this being the same area, I imagine we wouldn't have to rediscover them. Also, what is that sigil in the middle of the ground? I've been staring at it for so long, I can't tell you what it is. I know that it's lit up, and it resembles maybe a bull looking at the top. I see horns and maybe an eye, but right now, all I know is that that symbol is in the grass on some sort of hill. It has some sort of significance, being that it shows up in the first 20 seconds of this new trailer. My guess on these towers is that maybe, depending on the amount of time that's passed from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, we don't know that. Maybe there's Sheikah hideouts. Maybe there's some sort of posts, some level of post where our hero can go take rests. Maybe they lead to places underground with those themes being involved. Clearly, they're well lit for a good reason. They're meant to be beacons for our hero to be able to find. Who knows? Also want to make note of the amount of islands that are populated in the sky here. This game, I think, fulfills the dream that Skyward Sword wanted to fulfill, and somewhat what Wind Waker wanted to do as well. This big sprawling sky area where these islands genuinely hold secrets that we cannot guess until we go deeper in and explore. Some of the islands shown in this trailer alone are huge and contain treasure that we haven't gotten to interact with yet, obviously. Also, look at the sense of depth and scale is really impressive to me as well. Like, you really feel that distance from sky to ground, and I'm really excited about how we're going to traverse it all. I also can't make out what this little red light is at 20 seconds into the trailer. That's shown very briefly. It must be of some significance. That's my imagination here. Everything in this trailer is done very purposefully. They wouldn't present it this way otherwise. So I really want to know what's down there. Also, what are these little blue freckles of light traversing around the sky? Is that maybe some offshoot of a dragon flying by? Could that be Sheikah energy from some tool that we're using? Who knows? I also wonder what significance it has that the island that we're looking at right now has this long offshoot that seems to touch really close to the ground, or at least reaches very far down low. And at around 29 seconds, these cave biomes are extremely interesting to me. This longhorn bokoblin one, I don't remember in Breath of the Wild if we see fused enemy camps. I've been playing the game a lot again recently just to refresh my knowledge on the world. And to my memory, you see bokoblins and moblins in one camp, or you see Lizalfos, or you see Stout Children. You typically don't see them united. But down here in this underground biome that seems to be very fleshed out based on the growing fauna, based on, I can't even see a ceiling here. This is clearly a well-developed space. And you see this bokoblin mining what seems to be luminous stone. I wonder if that'll affect its combat. I wonder if it'll have different behaviors because it happens to be mining. Maybe it throws those stones. We saw a lot of this play with enemy variety in DLC of Breath of the Wild, and especially in Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity is a game that I really hope they draw some enemy ideas from, because the variety of different things that we see in that game, and enemy types, really give me hope that we'll see any of them in Tears of the Kingdom. I also want to take into account that we haven't seen Link in this environment yet. We've seen him in caves, but not here in particular. More on that later. I also want to take a moment to look over at the little spirit beings, or sorry to jump the gun, I guess, but the little flames on the right side of this image. Still on 28 seconds. They remind me of the spirits that you find in Twilight Princess, and I can't shake that thought. Why would they just be sitting here in uniform all on the ground like this? They also remind me of the little flames that we see around King Rome or any of the other champions encased in these flames. And I wonder if that's what we're looking at right now here. We also haven't seen any of them topside, which again, we'll talk about later. On Bridge Hylia, this is an image I've been wanting to talk about so much. The three-headed dragon that is extremely reminiscent of the three-headed dragon named Gleekor in Zelda 1, and it looks absolutely insane. We know that through Lionels and other enemies, a lot of Breath of the Wild doesn't necessarily have new enemies to the franchise in abundance, but reimagined and updated versions of enemies from Zelda so old that they're unrecognizable in their new forms. I mean that in a positive light. And if I have to fight this as a general enemy, if there's more than one of these to take down in the overworld, I'm extremely excited for what my combat options might be. Moving forward at the 35-second mark, we see a shot of Hateno Village with a little guardian husk draped over this building up in the top left. Also see probably the most important thing to me here, this green spiral that you see in multiple other shots of this trailer. This is giving me vibes of maybe a portal or a communicator to a different area in the game. Now again, I don't want to assume too much, but to me that looks like maybe portals to that underground area that we've been seeing. Or if not portals, maybe a transfer of material, maybe a transfer of power. I don't know, but generally in Breath of the Wild, you can access anything that you see. This would be the first point of access where Link cannot get to by normal means of traversal that we have available to us. I'll get into this later. On 37 seconds, we see the return of the Blood Moon. Nothing incredibly exciting about that. With Ganon rising up from the underground, the Blood Moon is just a manifestation of his malice to respawn enemies. Maybe it's something more in this game. Maybe there's periods of time where the Blood Moon is active, maybe are longer, maybe they have different effects. One critique I've had of Breath of the Wild is the Blood Moon just felt like a reset. They didn't feel like a genuine event. Maybe that's changing in Tears of the Kingdom. This is also the first moment where we get to hear Ganon voice acted, and I think Matt Mercer is doing an amazing job with the English translation.
Rise, rise, my servants. Sweep over Hyrule. Eliminate this kingdom and her allies. Leave no survivors.
If I were to give a critique, I would have maybe preferred something a little bit more raspy. It's also so insane to see at 44 seconds. Hyrule Castle totally corrupted. Makes me wonder what we accomplished in Breath of the Wild. We defeated the Calamity, and for what? Things look worse by multiple times. It's awful. What the trailer really gave me is that I pray that this is true. Our narrative is finally being expanded. Mind you, I appreciate environmental storytelling, and I love how Breath of the Wild did it, but those stories being told only really sang to longtime fans of the Zelda franchise. If Breath of the Wild was your first Zelda, you didn't necessarily know what was going on or had any reason to care to do so. This title, I think, is looking to draw in fans of Breath of the Wild that felt the narrative to be lacking. Now, these Malice missiles start dropping at around 47 seconds, and I'm really curious as to what they're hitting, and I can't tell if they're destroying what they're hitting, but I'm seeing like claws jutting out, multiple legs. It clearly doesn't look human, but it seems humanoid in size. I can't tell if it's giving it a buff or if it's straight up exploding whatever it's hitting, but we've never seen Malice interact with things in this way. And this seems to be either a hint at an in-game cutscene or a mechanic that we're waiting on. Because we're also seeing later on in this same trailer, these same Malice projectiles powering up enemies on the ground floor. If we also look at this shot of the Great Plateau, at 53 seconds, if you squint, you see another one of those sigils on a hillside, and they all seem to be lit up at night. Now at around 55, 56 seconds, you're starting to see, again, these fused factions of enemies that we haven't seen before. A and B, we're seeing Redeads, or at least what looks like a Redead on screen. Redeads being an extremely terrifying enemy type, whether you've played Wind Waker, Ocarina of Time, any game where they're available. They're generally a very difficult or cumbersome enemy to deal with, and I'd love to see what they do with them mechanically in Breath of the Wild, and how they explain them coming back and not being in the first game. If you've looked into the lore of the games, Redeads are typically meant to be guards for royal families, and now that this underground has been dug up, maybe the Redeads have come up with that. I guess we wait to see. You also see a couple new enemy types here, more of these moblins and bokoblins with varied horns. You see something new that's specified on the website as a boss bokoblin that's able to buff the bokoblins around it with the horn song that it plays. Makes me wonder if there's going to be boss versions of any other enemy faction. Coming up on 1 minute, 1 second, we see this shot of Link being surrounded by these Guardian Tech arms, one of them being this cone-shaped apparatus. And based on the decorations on the wall, it it's not a Yiga hideout. The Yiga typically cover up any signing of Sheikah symbolism or memorabilia, and we know that this franchise cares a lot about detail, which makes me wonder if this Sheikah hideout that we're in is the same as these tower locations that are lit up. Maybe Link goes into these lit up towers and all of them end up being Sheikah hideouts like the one that we just teleported into. And around 1 minute, 2 seconds, we see another shot of these upgraded bokoblins, their horns serrated like forks, almost like some Lizalfos weapons. And you have to wonder if this is just a natural development over time that these colonies have developed on their own, or if the growing power of Ganondorf and the heightened amount of malice in the area has upgraded them to this point. In this scene, you also see them all attacking in unison, and you have to wonder if that is an effect of the horn song that the leader bokoblin plays, or that the boss bokoblin plays. Moving on, you see this Hinox chasing Link through a cave with a covering on his horn, maybe to protect it, looks burnable, and a really expensive gemstone on its neck. Mind you, we're no stranger to Hinox's collecting expensive things, so that's not necessarily out of order. But I do wonder if the Hinoxes have upgraded AI to make them fight differently than how they fought in Breath of the Wild. And here we see the iconic scene. This mirrors Link leaving the Shrine of Rebirth when he wakes up for the first time, running out into the world, but now with experience, now with proper gear, now with a glider with the tassels on the back, which looks absolutely fantastic and can be changed visually depending on which amiibo that you use on your Switch when the game's finally out. I'm drawing a blank on the name of this location, but if any of you in the comments want to tell me, feel free to do so. Now, I want to talk about this scene briefly at 106. At first, watching this trailer a couple times back, I thought, oh, shiny grass, whatever, nothing to really worry about. But after giving it a closer look, this is Link riding over one of these sigils, and clearly at this point it's glowing, and it makes me wonder what significance these sigils have to our gameplay, what finding them may mean. 108, we see these enemies again flying in bokoblins. I imagine they're not going to choose to do what was done in Master Mode, which, thinking back, makes sense that Master Mode had these Octorok sky platforms for enemies. Maybe an idea that they were already playing with back during Breath of the Wild's DLC. Now I imagine they won't be using those, the overworld, since we have the islands, but you'll see enemies often flown into your location, maybe ambushing Link a lot more often. I think another critique of Breath of the Wild that you could say is that enemy interaction was very much up to the player, and there was never really a need to go out and pick a fight, especially if you had the weapons you already wanted. You had no need to really go and kill enemies unless you really needed materials for whatever reason, which you never truly need, you just want. I'm hoping that maybe enemy factions can be a little bit more aggressive, swooping in on Link when maybe he least expects it and forcing you into combat. We also see some more variants on moblins. We see a new horn type for the moblins. Clearly they're all wearing different types of gear. I wonder if this is also because of Ganon's influence of malice, or if through the passage of time, these enemy factions have learned to better defend themselves against Link. And here we have a moment in the sky against our big Minecraft man. But I want to talk about the difference between these enemies and the ones that we see developed through malice. This is giving me vibes of Tower of Gods in Wind Waker. I don't believe this is an enemy that is naturally aggressive. I don't believe this is an enemy being controlled by malice because it has that green power surging through its body. This is giving me hints at tests that Link has to pass, trials that he has to overcome to prove himself to earn something. Obviously, I can't speculate as to what he's earning, but defeating these golems. But every sky enemy that we've seen in this trailer or others makes me believe that they're not truly evil and they're just meant to test Link as a combatant, which plays into something that I want to mention later. Also, you notice he had that dodge within a bullet time range, but bullet time didn't proc. At about 111, we see another shot of Ganon with a huge gaping hole in his chest, and malice clearly surging from his body. And at 114, we see the same shot again that we've seen in other trailers of him awakening to his malice and him outside, I imagine, commanding the destruction that's coming in the early parts of this game. Now at 115, this is the first time that we see Zelda speak. Now, I've seen some speculation online about Zelda possibly being dead from the fall that she takes, and I just think that's not true. I'll explain in more detail what I think is true later, but this is clearly outside of the beginning scenes of the game, and Zelda is communicating with us pretty directly. Also, I want to say at this point when the trailer's music drops, I had an emotional reaction. You can see that on my channel right now. Also, look at the amount of sprawling islands, not only in terms of the quantity of them, but look, some of them go incredibly vertical. Some of them seem climbable almost from the ground. You can still see the towers from the ground. If this game has a draw distance that allows you to see towers from the sky, that's just absolutely incredible. Also makes me wonder, in Breath of the Wild, one of the most interesting things is that we could see ruins from locations that we remember from old Zelda games, Longmont Ranch, the Temple of Time, etc. I wonder if there is a ruined version of Skyloft somewhere, or maybe it's not ruined, who knows, but I'd love to see it. Around 120, we see our dive animation, really really curious as to what they're going to be doing with sky combat, that being a huge emphasis that they've talked about in press releases and interviews about wanting to upgrade Link's sky abilities. This dive animation being the only thing that they've really shown us, and I really want to see more. Here at 125, we see one of those sigils in the daytime, confirming that they do not light up in the daytime. They must only be active at night, or maybe that just makes them easier to see, who knows? But it's clearly going to be some sort of interactable that we're going to have to deal with. Now I can't tell what's on that arrowhead, but it looks like our green power, with whatever power our hand has the ability to make our arrows seek targets. Really interesting. Now here in the trailer, I'm not gonna lie, I lost my shit just a little bit. On one of these sky islands, you see Link has new shield mobility options, one of them being grinding on his shield on rails. If you know any other franchises where rail grinding is common, let me know. Here you also see some mine carts, some sort of propeller laying about on these sky islands, and some more moblin factions up in the sky. Also some large clusters at 128 of islands over on the left. Clearly the sky is gonna be an extremely vast place to play around. I can't wait to do so myself. Now here's something that I really want to talk about. I really enjoy the shrines, and our special arm, I'm not sure what it is. I'll talk about some speculation on it in a minute. But this arm is clearly moving around this puzzle, and clearly we're not in a shrine environment where puzzles like this used to exist. My cracked head theory here is that obviously we can't have shrines, but obviously these mini dungeon puzzles were extremely popular in the community. If you look on social media, if you look on YouTube, any posting sites, especially when the game was new, people were posting their creative solutions to all these puzzles that Zelda Sandbox provided for us. I don't see why they want to really get rid of them, but I also understand that shrines cannot be copy and pasted because lore-wise that wouldn't make sense. I think they're moving all those same puzzles to the overworld to lessen that disconnect, to take away the loading screen, to have it be a seamless transition from exploration to puzzle to exploration to puzzle, vice versa. If I'm right, please come back here and let me know. If I'm wrong, if you think I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Now this scene is extremely interesting here. One, we see Link in a pseudo cave area, a more expanded cave, but I still don't think this is that same cave biome that we saw earlier. We also see Link at around 131 in the trailer with a very special weapon similar to the dragon arm weapon we saw in trailer 1. It also seems to be surging with the same green energy that we see in his arm, throwing this bomb at this luminous stone talus. It's 100% my belief that these weapons are going to be craftable. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong, but these don't seem like weapons that you're going to find in the overworld. Either they're craftable or they're weapons that you can only earn in the sky by beating those trials. Also makes me wonder, because I feel like a perfect solution to the gripes of weapon durability, which I personally think is a genius system that the game needs, is maybe to include certain special weapons that maybe never break or exist on a charge. The Master Sword being the only one in the last game, maybe have more than one weapon that are useful for unique tasks that work that way. That way, I feel like you can still have the ecosystem of needing to use your weapons to gain weapons to be able to fight your general enemy. However, these weapons that fit more niche situations and more specialties that aren't really designed for general combat, having them be unbreakable or work on a charge makes a lot more sense to me. We can also see whatever that bomb impact was huge, and it at least staggered the Stone Talus. Don't think it one-shot it, but it staggered it. Now at 132, we see an image that's super reminiscent of the teaser that we saw earlier this year where the release date was revealed. We see a figure that looks like Zelda with this ornate jewelry on, with the same green color that you see in Link's hand, but has the same figure as Zelda. I think the largest possibility is that we create some sort of direct link with Hylia, or at least we see Hylia in visions. To me, my best guess on who this is has to be Hylia, and I also believe that's where we derive our power from, but we'll get into that. We also see Link's hand outreach to Hylia in some sort of dreamscape. I don't think this is something that exists in the world in the physical plane, but it is something that Link sees. That being supported by around 135 when we see Link holding his hand up, looking to the sky, alone, back in the physical world, staring at his hand as if this is a vision that he's having, but one that is not happening in front of him genuinely. It's also my belief you see this hand emitting this blue-green energy at around 139, taking this wheel out of this lake. You don't know what this wheel is made out of, but my imagination is that this hand's power embodies all of the Sheikah Slate abilities and more. This almost being the source of that power. General physical manipulation. We saw the hand manipulating a stone object earlier, and now it's doing the same to this wheel object we just ripped out of this pond. And we go into the showstopper from this trailer. At around 140, we see Link driving a car using one of these wheels, comprised of some snake heads pads, some wood, a power source that's the same color of the power of his hand, and headlights. The reason why I'm calling these craftables is because this looks very custom. This does not look like a developer designed vehicle that they just threw into the game as a flat design for Link to use. That would look a lot more intentional, similar to the Master Cycle Zero, which I wonder where that is. These look like parts that Link found laying around and was able to use the power of his hand, whatever that hand may be, to form it into this vehicle that we have now, which is so amazing. The possibilities, as far as we know right now, are absolutely endless. I can't wait to see how this develops in the game itself. They also show examples of other vehicles that I imagine we can build, all being held together by this green aura goop. We see a hot air balloon comprised of some wood platforms we found wherever, and again, this hand-based energy. We also see in the background another shot of that same vertical island that we saw earlier in this trailer, and we see Death Mountain spewing malice, which cannot be good for it. And one of the bigger showstoppers for me, a flying machine. It really shows that the developers paid attention to social media and paid attention to what the fans were doing with the raw powers that we had in Breath of the Wild, creating our own flying machines, creating our own cars, and posting them online. I feel like they took ideas from that and created these genuine craftables that exist within the game. And they look so fun to use. They're all, again, held together by this green goop that I imagine is produced from our hand. And I'm really curious to see what other machines we can make. And on this scene where we see our title card, we ride off into the sunset, seeing a green aura around an object descending from, I assume is the sky, however that's descending, interacting with the world, I'm not sure. As we hear a singing that is reminiscent of the Twilight language. It's too vague to speculate, but that's what it sounds like to me. And after we cut to black at the 158 mark, we see a malice attack jutting out from Ganon's chest. The Master Sword already damaged at this point. So Ganon's already attacked once by the time we see this scene. And Link's arm is already heavily damaged by that same malice attack. We see the energy jut out at Link and Zelda. Link defenseless to defend anyone. And as Link reaches out to Zelda, you hear her say, "Please lend him your power." Who is she speaking to? We do not know yet. But this scene has to hold some sort of significance, and I cannot ignore it. The fact that they placed Link above Zelda, her descending, him staying up in the sky, up on the upper plane, the fact that we have not seen Link in some of these other biomes. I will get into this super briefly, but that being the final scene of the trailer is so powerful to me. And when she says, "Please lend him your power," you have to wonder who she's communicating with. My biggest guesses has to be communicating with Hylia to maybe lend him that power. Zelda's been trapped fighting Ganon for over 100 years, using the power that she's been praying for so long. She has to be incredibly experienced with it. So to maybe heal his arm and give him the powers directly from Hylia, or ask Hylia to help him by giving Link the powers of Maz Koshia or any of these other ancient monks, there's so much to speculate about it. Now, that being all the trailer has to offer, I think I want to make a reach. I want to make a giant leap in assumption. But for me, the writing's all over the wall. A tweet that Nintendo UK and Nintendo Japan put out recently shows Zelda holding some sort of Sheikah tablet. It's not quite a Sheikah Slate. It doesn't look exactly the same. It looks more like a Switch. Really realistic. The gaming tied. It looks so more like a Switch than a Wii U gamepad did for the Sheikah Slate. But clear, and you see her with a torch. My belief, tying with all these portals, these green portals that we've seen throughout the trailer, I think, at least for a portion of the game, we will have playable Zelda in this game. I think Link is going to stick to the base Hyrule and the sky, while Zelda is going to explore the underground, maybe looking for an escape, maybe looking for a solution. The line that Zelda says around halfway through the trailer, she says, "But Link, I'm not sure you'll be able to stop him." Obviously, that's a certain amount of doubt in Link, but I think the implication is that he won't be able to stop him alone. I'm not saying that we're going to get any sort of co-op in this game, but my largest theory is that we're finally going to be able to play as Zelda with that Sheikah tool in these underground biomes. I think we're going to get different combat from them. Recently, in an interview with the developers, when asked the question of playable Zelda, it was dismissed, given a flip response, not wanting to give a direct answer. During Breath of the Wild, this was given an outright no, stating that there's no reason for a playable Zelda if they're that similar to Link. There would be, why bother? It's just a skin at that point, which I agree with that notion. But if we get a genuinely different playstyle from Zelda in the underground, we could see that. That explains why we're also only seeing the spirit spirits underground. Zelda is a lot more in tune with the spiritual side of her powers and would have that deeper connection to be able to see them more directly than Link would be able to. Link was able to see spirits as well. The Koroks are not normally visible to your average person because he was pure of heart. King Rome and the other champions made themselves heard and seen by him, but I think with Zelda's deeper connection, maybe she can contact those spirits that aren't as powerful or as loud, and that's where we always see them in the underground. We also maybe only see them in the underground because that's where dead are buried, underground. So it would make sense for the underground to be covered in these little flames of little spirits of souls just roaming about, which also ties into why Redeads are back and weren't in Breath of the Wild. Now with the underground ripped open and unleashed to everyone else, we have Redeads again, and maybe other enemy types that have been skulking down there that we haven't seen yet. I think Nintendo's holding a lot to the chest of Tears of the Kingdom, and we've only seen a hair of what we're to get with content. Between weapon crafting, between playable Zelda, between all of the explorable islands, the speculation that Fi may be returning. I remember the one-shot teaser that we got on Twitter where our Master Sword was glowing in the same way that it was when Fi was trying to communicate with us in Skyward Sword. There's a lot of speculation that that character might be reintroduced. This game has so much that I can barely contain my excitement for it, and that's why I'm here to talk about it. I know this video is incredibly different than my average content. All I ask is that you give it a chance. All I ask is that if you know someone who's also extremely interested in Tears of the Kingdom or Legend of Zelda in general, share this with them. And if you want to see any of the Zelda content from me, please let me know in the comment section down below, or show me by watching the video, by liking the video. I'd greatly appreciate it. This franchise is extremely close to my heart, and it's been a dream to be able to cover it. And I'd love to do that for you guys if you'll, if you'll pay attention to it, that is. Obviously, this channel is here for my own creative endeavors, but I also want to do what you guys want. I'm extremely excited for this Zelda release. April on my Twitch channel, I'm going to be playing a lot of Zelda games, so make sure that you're there for that. Twitch.tv/30pants. And subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of this content. I love you people, all right? The dinner table, my community. Y'all make this happen. I appreciate your time. Take it easy. Have a good rest of your evening or whatever time zone you're in. Deuces. I have no doubts in my mind. This game is going to be perfect. I swear. And if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. Okay, now I'm done.